If I could have one wish, well, this might not be what I'd wish for, but right now, I got to tell you, if I could be one of these debate moderators for these presidential or vice presidential debates, I would be glad to take that task. These debates drive me batty, and they drive me batty because the people that do these debates, these moderators, they absolutely hate whoever the GOP representative is. It's true with when Trump was in the debate with Harris, and it was true last night with J.D. Vance and Tim Walz. These people, it's so one-sided against the GOP candidate. These people won't give them a chance to clarify things. And J.D. Vance strikes me as just being a really nice guy. We need a bulldog. We need a well-informed. Now Vance is coherent. He's articulate. He's well-spoken. He handles himself very well, I believe. But I would like to see a real bulldog that would not only go after Walz, but would have the opportunity to go after Walz, which you are not given in these sham debates, because these moderators for these lettered networks, they're liberal, government-loving, propaganda-spewing leftists, and the deck is always stacked against the GOP. I can only take so much of this debate last night. It was just ridiculous. I mean, Walz is just, he's a disaster. He should be easy to take down, but it's always 2-on-1 or 3-on-1. It's the moderators and the Democratic candidate, whoever it is, against the GOP candidate. And it's so hard for the GOP candidate, in this case, Vance, to get his point across because he's basically debating three people. It's ridiculous. At one point in this debate, I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a good chunk of it before I just said, I just can't take it anymore. I'm going to have a stroke or something. They never really get deep into the issues that need to be discussed. They always come back to this pablum like climate change. It's just, it drives me crazy, folks. Climate change, they made climate change one of the questions, and of course they seek in their question to demonize and villainize Vance and Trump and the GOP, because obviously they're totally against us doing anything about climate change. Now, of course, this is like code. What they don't mean climate change. What they actually mean is a reference to this debunked theory called man-made global warming. You don't hear that term anymore. The reason you don't hear it anymore is because it has been successfully debunked. So they shifted their term to climate change. Well, of course there's climate change. We have climate change in Alabama every freaking day, for heaven's sakes. There's always climate. The climate's always changing. We have spring, summer, fall, winter. The climate changes. No one would argue anything about that. But of course, that's not what they mean. They're talking about the idea, not the fact, but the idea that man and all of his evil innovations in industry is polluting the earth and he's changing the climate because of all of his industry on the earth. And of course, Republicans, they're trying to poison us all because they all hate clean air and clean water, and because they're building things and they're polluting our skies with all of their industry. Don't you think that's an evil thing? That's what they're inferring. Now, the fact of the matter is this. If we could reduce emissions in the United States to zero. If we could reduce emissions caused by industry in America, in our factories and what have you, make it zero, have none, the total impact on the earth would be negated by the fact that China, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I've read, they're the biggest polluters of all. And of course, we're bedfellows with China. Certainly the Democrats are. They're not going to reduce their emissions. They're not having a debate in China or India about climate change, for heaven's sakes. So this thing is just a non-starter. It's so bogus what they do with things like this. And you know, Vance tries to respond to these things and they cut him off and he just can't engage Walz like he needs to be able to do. I'd like to, if I were moderating this thing, I'd be asking Walz, can you explain to us, Governor, why you went to China 50 times? Can you explain that to us? And we're going to give you 5 minutes to respond because you went an awful lot to China. Why are you so fascinated with China, Governor? 50 times to China? I can understand 2 or 3 visits maybe as a tourist, but you went 50 times to China? Why? Why did you do that? But of course, you don't ever hear questions like that. These things are always so one-sided. It's like if you can imagine going to a ball game, maybe a baseball game, and somebody slipped the umpires a $100 bill before the game. That's kind of what it's like. Now you're going to get all the balls and strikes and outs called for in your favor. That's kind of what these things are like. They're all so one-sided. Well, Senator Vance, Donald Trump has called climate change a hoax. How do you respond to that? Well, it's stuff like this. Nothing that any Democrat says could possibly be called into question by these people. It's always the Republicans that are the evil ones. We need a real bulldog at these debates that can handle this. I don't understand why we're agreeing to debates on these letter networks in the first place. Is it because Harris/Walz won't agree to a debate over on Fox or Newsmax or some other perceived conservative outlet? Does it always have to be CBS or NBC or ABC, where the moderators are obviously going to be one-sided against the GOP candidate? I don't understand why we keep agreeing to this. It makes no sense to me. I have come to believe, ladies and gentlemen, that Donald Trump is going to win this election. I really believe that. I listened quite a bit to a guy by the name of Rich Barris. He is known as the People's Pundit. He's a pollster who is uncannily accurate and has been for years. You can find him, I know, on Twitter or X. Look up the People's Pundit. He has a YouTube channel as well that I watch. And he really digs deep into the polls. And he also factors in the fraud that happens in each of these elections. And he has access to personnel within the Harris campaign that have told him privately that their numbers look really bad. And he is saying that they are particularly focused on the state of Pennsylvania. And you've got to win Pennsylvania. Harris has got to win Pennsylvania. And it's not looking good for her in Pennsylvania. And of course, you know, I understand you factor in the fraud from past elections in places like Pennsylvania and Arizona and Georgia and North Carolina, places like that. But he's saying even with factoring in the fraud that we know will happen, the voter fraud that we know is going to occur, because it always occurs. It's historically always been. It was a fact in 1960 in the Kennedy-Nixon election. But Rich is saying that all the internal polls are looking very good for Trump to the degree that he thinks that Trump is going to win rather handily. I hope and pray that he's right, but that's what he's saying. Anyway, look him up. You can find him, I think, on YouTube as well. The People's Pundit. I'm not sure the name of his channel, but it's worth a look-see. I was watching another channel today that I also highly recommend. Make a note of this, if you will, and look up America's Untold Stories. This is a channel that features Mark Grobert, I believe his name is Groubert. It is a fantastic channel. He just tells stories, America's Untold Stories, things, really fascinating stuff on the Kennedy assassination, but he also covers the news with his host, Eric Hunley. He has a lot of guests on his program. Fascinating channel. And Mark was talking today about the assassination attempt on Trump in Pennsylvania. What, last month, 2 months ago now? I guess it's been 2 months or so, maybe even longer. There's a report that just came out that is, the ineptness of the Secret Service and the ineptness of the security around Trump that day in Pennsylvania is stunning, absolutely stunning. What this man was exposed to and how he made it out of there alive is almost a miracle. And I've heard so many things about this, how this shooter got on top of this roof just a few hundred yards away to get a shot off. It's just, how can this happen? In light of all the things that have happened in recent history in America with political candidates, how on earth could this happen? But in this report, it detailed that when they loaded Trump into the vehicle to take him away from the scene and get him some medical attention, this is almost unbelievable to me. It was noted that the vehicle was only traveling at a very slow rate of speed, exiting the area where the rally had been held and where the assassination attempt was. Now, when Kennedy was shot in Dallas, the driver of the limousine stomped on the gas and headed for Parkland Hospital. But that didn't happen in Pennsylvania. The vehicle was leaving the area at a veritable crawl away from the scene. Very odd, don't you think? Do you know why the vehicle was... This is detailed in this report. He was leaving so slow because the driver of the SUV was on his cell phone Googling where a hospital might be. You can't make this up. Can you believe this? Like you don't already have this in place ahead of time? It's unbelievable to me. The driver is effectively firing up his GPS. Well, let's see if we can find a hospital. What? You don't already know? You don't already have a plan in place? I'm just left speechless lately with things like this that are happening. I don't know if you noticed the other day. You probably didn't, because it really, in a way, isn't important at all, but I'm going to bring this up. Last month, I'll get to this in just a moment. Last month, good old Liz Cheney, the former congressional representative from the state of Wyoming, the only one they have, was humiliated by Harriet Hageman in the last congressional election a couple of years ago. She was annihilated. It was a landslide defeat of Liz Cheney. Very gratifying, I must say. And I like Harriet Hageman. She's pretty good. She's a fireball. She's a pistol. And Harriet Hageman sent Liz Cheney packing. We all know about good old Liz Cheney, rhino extraordinaire, lover of war, lover of any war we can start anywhere, lover of the Ukrainian conflict, because we all know Russia is big, bad, and evil. Never met a war she didn't love, just like her old man, Dick. The Cheneys, they came out last month and endorsed, the Republicans came out last night and endorsed cackling Kamala Harris for president. I don't know if that surprised any of you or not, but that's just the way of the world anymore, folks. But what I wanted to get to was that former senator from Arizona by the name of Jeff Flake, F-L-A-K-E, Jeff Flake. He was a Republican senator from Arizona, and you might recall that he did not run for re-election, I don't know, in 2020, it may have been 2016, I forget. I can't remember if he quit early or if he just didn't. I think he just didn't run for re-election, and he was poo-pooing the plight of the GOP and the rise of Donald Trump, and he just couldn't take it anymore. I mean, he's kind of like a Mitt Romney character, a Liz Cheney character. And he himself is so pious, of course, and above the fray. So he announced he wasn't going to run anymore, and so he got out of the Senate. Well, Jeff Flake, good, dutiful Republican from Arizona that he is, he came out a couple of days ago and announced that he too was going to support Kamala Harris. And this is what I've concluded about all this, folks. You've got the Cheneys, you've got Jeff Flake, and you've got this Bush-Romney contingent, Bush-Romney-Mitch McConnell contingent in the GOP who would be completely fine with a Harris presidency. Make no mistake about it. If Harris were able to win the election, people like Mitch McConnell would be fine with it. They ain't got no problem with it at all. These people hate Donald Trump with a purple passion. They can't stand him. They don't want him anywhere near the White House. The Cheneys hate Donald Trump. That's obvious. They are dripping with hatred toward Donald Trump. Jeff Flake can't vote for Donald Trump. And he hasn't announced anything, but I think you could probably take it to the bank that George W. Bush is not going to vote for Donald Trump either. And as a matter of fact, I think when Trump ran against Hillary, I think he came out and basically said he wasn't even going to vote for the president when he went to vote. He was just going to leave it blank or something like that. These people cannot stand Donald Trump. And I'm different in that I'm no great lover of Donald Trump. I have a lot of disagreements with Donald Trump, but I don't hate Donald Trump, and I certainly will vote for Donald Trump because that's the choice we have right now. It's Trump or Harris, and of course, of those two, there is no comparison. As I have stated many times, you've got to give Trump credit for at least keeping us out of World War III, which apparently is what these people want. So that alone makes Trump worth the price of admission as far as I'm concerned. But if you spend some time thinking about it, you have to draw the conclusion that what we really have here, and I've said this many times, but it's been driven really close to home for me, and it's become so clear to me that what these people want, what the Cheneys and Bushes and Romneys and McConnells of the world, what they really want is a uniparty. They just want one party. They don't want two parties. They want one party. Now, in effect, that's what we have. So if you're a Republican down ticket and you're in Congress, or maybe you're a governor or a state representative or something, it doesn't really matter to them if you want to run as a Republican or a Democrat. But when you ascend up the ladder and you're talking about the executive branch and you're talking about the presidency, they only want Republicans who fall in line with the overall template of the uniparty. That is to say, you've got to be a lover of war. You've got to be a lover of big, intrusive government. You've got to be a lover of the police state and one who is opposed to privacy for the American people. You've got to be a lover of the surveillance state. You've got to be a lover of the Patriot Act. You've got to be a lover of being in bed with foreign governments for profit. You got to hate Russia. Got to hate Russia. You can't possibly sit down at a table with Putin and work out some compromise or some deals on some of the conflicts around the world. No, you've got to demonize Putin from the jump. You know, we don't have diplomacy anymore. We used to have diplomacy where we could at least sit down with other foreign leaders and at least talk and negotiate and compromise and hammer out some sort of an agreement that would keep everybody out of war. But we can't have that anymore. It's shoot first, ask questions later, and pocket the money from the profits you get by being in bed with corporations like Halliburton. Right, Dick? Right, Liz? So what they want is a uniparty. And that's what we largely have, which is why they're fine with Harris. Because it's no surprise that the Cheneys would endorse Harris, because she obviously wants the same thing they want, which is to profit off of war, which is to extend the war in Ukraine, demonize Russia, and keep the bank accounts going in Ukraine off of the conflict. Trump wants to end the war, or so he says, and I believe him. And we can't have that. We've got to have a uniparty. That's why you see these Republicans endorsing Harris. They don't care about these other peripheral issues. The main issue here is the global order, the New World Order, and making sure that we all fall in line with it. That's what they want. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the debate. That's my thoughts on the uniparty and these sorry-ass Republicans like the Cheneys and Jeff Flake and George Bush and Mitt Romney and Mitch McConnell. That just, it's business as usual in Washington, folks. Talk to me down below. See you soon.